Everyone knows where they were when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Where were you?
I was at my cousin Evelyn's for the weekend, and she was very upset when she heard the news. But I was kind of oblivious because, you know, Pearl Harbor from Boston is like the other side of the world back then.
Oh. Did she have a husband in the military? Is that why she was upset?
No, just the fact that they'd been bombed.
Oh.
No, her husband was in the military.
Did you go out on the street and start talking to other people? Like, did you hear what happened?
Did I go on a cruise?
No, did you go out on the street and start talking to people about it?
No.
It was just something you talked about in your household. Did you understand any consequences to you at that point?
What could be, yes.
And were you married then?
Dad was in the Navy.
Dad was already in the Navy? Oh. Did you think about that?
Oh, yeah. You always think about it.
Oh.
You wonder if they're coming back or not.
Yeah. And so that was...
That's why I named you Lloyd, against his wishes.
In case you didn't come back, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that was nice. I like that name.
Good thing you stuck with it.
That was Pearl Harbor. Then what about VE Day?
What?
Victory over Europe. When you had VE Day, what did you think about that?
Well, that was something that was out of the realm of our concern. I was only 16 or 17. So
I mean, when the war was over with Germany and Italy, there was a big celebration.
Oh, yeah.
And how did that go?
Well, I just went to work as usual.
Did you hug each other?
No, I was not very demonstrative in my days.
Oh, okay. Did you call anybody up and...
No, I heard about it. See, I really can't remember how I heard about the war in Europe. You mean when it was over?
When it was over?
I don't recall.
Okay. Now, what about when you heard about this giant bomb that America had dropped on Japan?
Well, I thought it was pretty devastating, but I think it saved a lot of lives.
Were you conflicted at the time at all of whether it was a good idea? Were you conflicted whether it was a good idea at all at the time?
I thought it was a good idea because it saved lives on both sides of the war.
When you heard about it, did you think that this could be the end of the war?
Oh, it was the end of the war. Are you talking about
Hiroshima?
What? Oh, Hiroshima?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. So
made believers out of the Japanese.
Yeah, they sure did. Were you aware at all of the terms of the surrender of the Japanese? Yeah. And you heard that there was an unconditional surrender?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Truman was not going to back off.
Yeah. Were you happy about that?
Sure.
Did you like Truman?
Yes. He was a get things done guy.
Yeah. What's the name of what was the plaque that he had on his desk?
The bull stops here.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
The bull stops here. So, see, after the war was over, how soon did Dad come home?
Well, he was one of the first back because they went by points, and he'd been in the war 2 years in the Pacific, 2 years in the Atlantic, so he accumulated points, and he was one of the first ones home.
Oh. During the war, how often did you see him?
How often?
I understand that you got pregnant and had a son.
While he was gone.
While he was gone.
He was on the East Coast duty then, and then they shipped him to the West Coast when I was about 7 months pregnant. So I didn't see him for a year. You were about 13 months when he came back.
So the first time Dad saw me, Lloyd Jr., was when I was 13 months old. Was he excited to be when he got home and saw me?
Oh yeah. The first time we were ever together, he called up when the ship had come in. Am I a daddy? Am I a daddy?
Oh, he never knew he was a daddy?
What?
I thought he received a telegram that he was a daddy.
Well, that was a year later.
Oh.
But this was when we first got married and the ship had come in. That's the first thing he'd ask on the phone. So he was looking forward to being a father.
Cool.
He was asking before if you were pregnant.
What?
So before he was asking, are you pregnant, basically, saying, am I a daddy?
Yeah.
And what ship was he on at that time?
The USS Knapp,
No.
a destroyer.
And what position did he have? What was his job on the ship?
He was, well, it all depends when you're talking about.
Oh.
When he
Okay.
was on the Knapp, I think he was a first class. And then when he got to the West Coast, he became a chief petty officer.
On the Knapp?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because his first ship was the Wilkes, and then the Knapp.
Were those both destroyers?
What, honey?
Were those both destroyers?
Mm-hmm. And he didn't get on submarines till peacetime.
Okay. So how long after the war was over did Dad get out of the service the first time?
Probably within a month.
Really? Oh, wow.
Like I say, he had the points, so he got shipped out back home.
And I understand that you might have been a farmer's wife.
That was many years later.
And how did that story go?
Oh, well, one sailor owned the property in
Biloxi.
what, honey?
Biloxi, wasn't it?
Biloxi, Mississippi?
Mississippi?
You're saying what?
Biloxi, Mississippi?
No, I don't think it was Biloxi.
What was that other one?
It might have been, I forget now. Anyway, the two fellas that were going to farm with him both had to stay in because the Korean War started.
Oh.
And they wouldn't let Dad out because he had dependents and was losing pay. So
Oh, I
he
see.
had to stay. They let him out because he had a family.
So when...
Gulfport, maybe. Remember it was one of those, Gulfport? No?
When he got home out of the service the first time, were you guys having mixed feelings like, oh great, the war's over, Dad's out, but now how are we going to support ourselves?
Yeah, you couldn't get jobs. They said you could have a job back to what you were doing when you went in. But,